G'day guys, Jason here from the Udder Farm. I'm actually on the trial property this morning. What I want to talk about is issues you can get with these 4 or 5 bar pipe gates. How you can overcome the issues with just a little bit of general maintenance, say once or twice a year. And if the issue does arise, a repair strategy, how you can fix it for about 10 to 20% of the price of a new gate. So firstly, we'll have a look at the issue. If you have a look closely, you can see it's rusted out. Rusted all the way through there to the pin. And if you have a closer look, you can see all those ants. What's happening is the ants are crawling up inside. They're nesting inside here because that's rusted from there all the way down. They're nesting inside there. They're carrying up mud to nest, to lay their eggs, so it's out of the weather. And what happens, because the moisture is in there in the mud, it starts rusting internally, then comes out, and then it chews through from the inside and holds your pipe. So this is the second gate on the other side. You can see I've lost 2 inches. It normally goes down there about 10 mil or half an inch below that bottom bar. So it's beyond being holed, it's actually rusted all the way up. And this one doesn't open properly now because it catches on the corner there. I've actually got to lift this gate up to open it. So let's talk about the general maintenance first. It's just a case of lifting up the gate from the middle and off the bottom pin and getting a block of timber and just tapping it on there to loosen up all the mud and dirt inside until it all falls out. I suggest using a bit of timber. You don't want to use something hard like a bit of steel or a hammer. You'll end up denting your pipe. And once you've got your gate installed properly, that's all it is. Simply lift up, hit it, dirt will come out. I didn't have to do mine because I done mine 3 months ago, so I knew there wouldn't be anything in there. When I tapped it then, nothing fell out. And this one's in good nick. There's no rust in it because I generally do that twice a year. But firstly, to allow for regular maintenance, it's crucial where you put this top bracket, this gate bracket. It's either got to go where it is below that bar, because what you've got to do is lift that gate up, clearing the top of that pin. So there's heaps of movement there to lift up like I just did to clear that pin. A few gates I've got on the property that I didn't install, they were already here when I got the property. This bracket was right there. And there's no movement to lift up to clean that pin. So you've got to make sure you measure that pin and give yourself clearance. That bracket, if that bracket was say 60 mil higher, that will give me the clearance to lift up so it would clear this pipe, lift up, clear the pin and allow it to clean that dirt out. See, this is a prime example why I can't lift this gate up and clear the bottom out and why it's rusted out. It's because that top bracket has been put right against this top bar, so there's no movement to clean up. Had that bracket have gone say up there either 2 inches or 3 inches higher, there would have been clearance to lift it up. Or vice versa, had it been under the bottom here, just clearing the bottom of this crossbar, I would have had all this movement to be able to lift it up. So some of you are probably thinking, if we done that and you get an animal head in here and lift the gate, it'll come off the hinges, then it'll compromise the gate. What you could do if you're in that situation is, if your bracket was here, you could then drill a hole through the pipe and put a bolt in through underneath the bracket. And when you want to do that maintenance, it's a matter of just pulling that bolt out and lifting the gate up. Because if that bolt was there and the bull or whatever animal you had was lifting the gate, it'd be hitting the bottom of that bracket. It couldn't lift it off if you're worried about it. But our animals don't come near the gate. They aren't rough. They aren't hard on equipment. So that's not an issue here. But if it is an issue, that's the way out of it. So I don't intend boring you with this next bit. I'm sure we all know how to take a gate off. So got a shifter in hand and a hammer. I'll get these gates off and we'll rip them up to the shed and we'll start the repair. So when it comes to the repair strategy, I'm just going to cut off these rusty sections, you know, an inch there just to get that flange out the road, that flared section, and approximately 2 inches there to get back to sort of some decent material. And the same goes with this one, just cut off that flared section at the end and then cut off the sound material. So I've got a rusty spot there, so the sound material is probably going to be up there, which is about 6 to 8 inches. So what I'm doing now is to alleviate the problem. This was the bracket position prior, so I couldn't lift that gate up to clean out the dirt and the mud. So what I'm doing now is I'm placing that bracket on. What I'm going to do, I want that bracket, when I weld the new section on the bottom, to end up here. So that gives me all this clearance here to be able to lift the gate up, let the mud out, take it off the bottom pin, then put it back on. So that's the position of the bracket. If I measure now, it's going to be 80 mil. So now I'll go ahead and I'll do the other gate. I'll do the same measurement. So what you'll need to do before you tackle this project is actually measure the outside diameter of the end of your gate where the hinge hooks onto and the pin at the bottom. So just measure the OD there and the bottom brace. They should be identical. And then what you'll need to do is slip on down to your local steel merchant and grab a bit of tubular pipe. What this is, what you're trying to do is create a sleeve. So with this diameter you got, you want it to snugly fit in there as tight as it can. So the bit of pipe I've got, I'll just use its offcut, it goes in. It's got about 2 mil clearance, so I've got about 1 mil clearance on each side of that pipe. That's as tight as I could get it. You don't want it too loose because then it's going to be very hard to weld. And what that does is that slips over there and creates a sleeve. So if you're welding it there, and the other section you cut off will be come onto here, and that'll form your new corner. Just when you buy the steel, make sure you get the wall heavy enough you can weld it. You don't want it too thin because then you're going to have difficulty welding it later on. You'll be blowing holes in it and you'll be that frustrated. So make sure you get a wall that's heavy enough that you can weld. So what I'm going to do now is measure up for this new section of pipe. So I've allowed myself 100 mil overlap up the top here for sleeve. So I already know the length of that. What I need to do is add that 82 millimeters on extra, which will then allow me to bring it below this top brace. That way when the gate goes on, I've got all this clearance here, so I can lift the gate up to take it off the bottom of the pin to clean that mud out. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and mark all these four sections of pipe up, and then we'll cut them and get ready to weld. So you wouldn't need to go to all this trouble if this bracket is below this bottom brace, because obviously you've got all this clearance room here to lift the gate up and get off its pin. And if that's the case, it's just a matter of like for like. You just got to allow your 4 inches overlap here, 100 mil, and then just mark off directly where the old pipe cuts off. And then it's just a matter of welding that on and doing this section over here. So what I'm going to be doing now is flattening off this section of pipe, both sides, to make it more weldable so I can run a bead of weld along this pipe and join it to here. They've done it here, the manufacturers of this gate, along this brace here. So they've obviously got a press. I just can't pull a press out of my pocket. So the next best thing is I'm going to grab a sledgehammer and we'll start flogging that down to get that flange on the end. Last thing I was expecting my steel cap to fall off. I know that looked pretty agricultural there with the sledgehammer, but you got to do what you got to do when you're in the bush. Just make do with the equipment you got, so didn't up too bad. If you have a look, so that fits nicely across there and also on the end. So it flattened it down, make it more weldable. So all I need to do now, I'm just going to touch that section on the front there on the flat of the disc, on the cutting wheel, flatten it off a bit. That way it sits up there a bit more flusher, and then we'll go ahead and weld them. So there we have it, both sections repaired. I'll give it a lick of paint now and we'll go swing them in the morning. As you can see, I've got 2 coats of paint on overnight, so let's hang them. Before I say it's success, we'll just open them and close and make sure they work. Remember back at the start of the video, I had that bracket up there, so there's no way I could lift this gate up to clean out that pipe off that pin. So that's why that extra 80mm to bring that bracket below. So to call it a success, we'll actually lift this gate up to find out if I can actually clear that pin to clean that pipe out when I need to. Well, that side worked. So I'm going to call that a success, guys. So that's the easy way to maintain those gates without them rusting out on you, is hinge it so you can lift them up and clean the pipe out. And when it comes down to the repair strategy, it's up to you guys whether you think it's worth repairing or not. These gates range between $100 and $125 Australian. So what it boils down to is, what's your time worth? This is about 6 hours worth of work here. Either put in 6 hours, it could be on a rainy day when you can't do work in the paddock anyway, which is beneficial, at least you've got something to do, or whether you're happy to pay the $250 and get 2 brand new sets of gate. Well, that's up to you guys to decide. So as you can see, guys, that new section come up a treat. It works really well. I won't take credit for it because it's my dad's idea. I just copied what he done and it works brilliant, so thanks, Dad. Righto guys, if you like what you see, hit that like button, leave a comment and I'll respond. I respond to all comments, and if you want to subscribe, guys, by all means, hit that subscribe button. It should be down in your right hand corner, my left hand side. It's a little business logo down the bottom there in the corner. So on behalf of Butch and myself, have a terrific morning, a great afternoon and an awesome evening, guys, wherever you're watching this from, and we'll catch you later.